Okay. Welcome to week 13 of the Pregnancy Desktop, inspired by the NBA Desktop by Jason Concepcion for The Ringer. So this week is a recap of week 13 in this pregnancy adventure journey. Unlike other weeks, the websites that tell you what your baby is, how big they are, seem to be in agreement. So,
But wait, are we doing the
oh, I
pun?
forgot my pun.
Okay. Give me the
Okay,
pun.
yeah, okay, you ready for the pun?
Yeah.
What protocol do babies use to communicate online?
Uh, I don't know.
DTTP, Diaper Text Transfer Protocol. Okay. Okay, so we have a lemon cookie this week as opposed to a fruit shake. So yeah, it's just notable that both the main websites that tell you how big they are say it's the size of a lemon. I know lemons come in different sizes, but you can imagine the size of a small fist. And the last one is a cookie.
That's a terrible. That's the one that gave the mushroom. The
Yeah.
same site.
So this
They
site
just
is
pick things
this
that
is
could
site
be
is the
any
least.
size.
Yeah, they're the least accurate, I guess. But I like lemon cookie because it sounds like duck duck goose, except in a new fun way. Okay, and so this week the baby is, according to these websites, between 25 and 28 grams. That's just under an ounce. Meanwhile, I've gained 13 pounds in the first 13 weeks. And so this is something I'll be tracking much more carefully. Now I'm trying to flip over to an image that this is a chart for twin-specific pregnancies on how much weight to gain week by week. So, for example, there's sort of three things that your weight gain depends on, we've learned. One of them is actually your weight before you start. So if you have a normal body mass index, and you can easily calculate that with an online calculator, then you kind of follow the normal flow. If you were underweight before, you have to gain more, and if you were overweight, you kind of have to slow it down. And yeah, it's kind of amazing to think about just how much weight I'll be gaining. Like I'm already bigger than I've ever been in my life. Yeah. Oh, the other thing it depends on, besides your weight before you start, is how many you have. So if you have twins, you gain more, obviously. Yeah, but most of that seems to be not, it's not their weight, of course, but it's not all fat either. You gain a lot of blood and other things like the placenta itself at the end, each one. So if you have two, is like a pound. And one of the reasons that this is struck me as really important to note is because when poking around and trying to get accurate numbers for how much weight I should be gaining, it came to our attention that there's good guidelines out there, but studies after study has shown that a lot of women don't hit those targets, and most of them seem to go over the recommendations. So it's really important not to go under or over. So we'll be tracking that carefully. So far, I'm more or less on track for twins. This week, week 13, the kind of big event of the week was our nuchal translucency scan. And so what that is they're looking for Down syndrome, but also neural tube defects, and it involves going to the hospital, having an ultrasound done externally. So you just kind of slightly pull down your top of your pants, and they rub jelly on your belly. And Daniel and I went together, and so meanwhile, the guy who's doing the scan, in our case, it was a guy named Alex. He's looking for these measurements of the kind of neural tube. So here's one that's really big, but also things like the nasal bone, I guess that's this one's pointing to, and other things. And for us, so kind of the excitement was just to see them on the screen. So this is a picture of me laying down, and he's got the probe on my stomach, and the whole time I'm looking at the screen, just kind of fascinated. And this is a video. One of the most surprising things was just seeing, you can see the little fetus in there moving around. He's also moving the probe, but the little guy inside, now he's jiggling it because he's trying to get them to move around so he can see at the right spot to measure those nuchal translucencies. It was surprising to me, and I'm surprised that I was surprised because I didn't realize I had this expectation that they moved constantly, pretty much. Okay, so that's that. The other big event for week 13 for us was that I got to, okay, I skipped something. So one thing that they found on the scan, which was a little unnerving, is this SCH. And I also wanted to mention this because this is really, apparently it's really common. Like I read 25% of pregnancies have some bleeding, and so it means in this case we found out there's like a small area where the placenta is like detached and there's some blood. Sometimes you don't have bleeding and sometimes you do. Long story, but basically it's not that uncommon, and it was a big event in my life this week because I got unnerved a little bit by it, and in the process of finding out that we had that, I did do some other testing, and so it was more time in the hospital. But so the other big event that I was leading up to is revealing, and we had decided that, so this was the first time we were telling either of, so they were telling my dad in this case. We still haven't told Daniel's family, and so I'm an only child, so this is my dad's first grandkid. And he's an older Greek guy who can be emotional. I wasn't sure how he'd react. And he has a lovely wife, my stepmom, Ev. So we went out on the pretense of it being his birthday. We still celebrated his birthday, but then we gave him this mug. So I have this video. The video is not great, so I'm going to explain what's going on. I gave him this mug, which is hidden by this glass, and the mug changes colors as it heats up. So at first you can't see anything, it's just black, and then it heats up, and so he's trying to see it change and to see what it says, and the message that it reveals says, "Guess what?" and it has two little feet. So he's watched this for this long time.
I think Ev's figured it out.
And so my stepmom figured it out like right away. She read it, but she's keeping the secret.
Can you read it?
And my dad's still trying to see what it says. It was really cute. He looked like they were genuinely surprised and really happy.
Congratulations!
Yeah.
Oh my God, I am so happy for you guys.
Okay, they were so cute. It was really lovely. It was nice to be able to share that with them, and also now we can ply them with questions because, obviously they've been through this. And then Ev has daughters who have been through it. So yeah, it's going to be really nice. I think this week is the first week where now we're kind of going to be on a roll with telling people and then being able to ask for advice and ask about their experiences. So I think we're officially at the last week of first trimester. That's week 13. 27 weeks to go if you go all the way, or 25 most likely if you have twins. So we're kind of entering now the middle phase. And yeah, it just struck me that everyone says this is the best part, the middle third. And it's kind of also like, as an athlete, sometimes you divide up your sets into chunks mentally. And I find that for longer workouts, that like middle phase where you just sink into the work is kind of, I can relate to that being sort of the best part. So for this week, for fun, we have two recommended listenings. They're really great because they're fun and practical. And the first was an interview with Roman Mars, who some of you may know from 99% Invisible, his podcast. But in this case, he's being interviewed by the host of The Longest Shortest Time, a great podcast about parenting. And in particular, he has a good story because he has twins, and so he gives some really nice anecdotes. The thing that stuck out for me is also what led to this title of this episode. It's called The Bestest, Worstest Time. So he described that year, the first year of his twins' life, as the worst, but also the best. And then another related thing to have a listen to is this 36 questions to ask before you have kids. And so it's inspired by the famous survey, the 36 questions to ask your partner to fall in love. And this was also really useful. It sparked a lot of questions for me in my mind. It got me thinking very far into the future, which is not a bad thing. So yeah, those are some recommendations for this week. They're not they're pretty practical, but they're also really fun.